I got an interesting flip on it, and I'm glad that I brought up capitalism. It's not to say that I'm taking this direction, like personally, but it's just maybe for devil's advocate, it's interesting. So, like, you talked about how like we should stay playing this game. In this game, like in terms of like, let's say, like, let's just take economic structures like capitalism, for example. To me, you have a system in place that incentivizes actors that would have like Machiavellian behavior type. So it's like it's competitive, it's strategic manipulation. It's like it's focused on results over means. That's all capitalism. And if we're engaging in this hypothetical of playing a game, should we be playing a game that disincentivizes that? And I'll go again. This is not to say like I'm uh, not a capitalist, but let's take socialism for example, relative to capitalism, and like how it could discourage Machiavellianism and creating those personality types. You got wealth and resources; it's not concentrated in the hands of a few. So now you're reducing opportunities for people or individuals to manipulate systems for personal gain because now wealth is something that's been distributed. And like now, instead of like centralized entities, now it's everything is a little bit more broad, and now you have to have cooperation amongst others, and it's just like that seems different. And it's not to say that, like, since we're playing this hypothetical game of not pretending like we're not in the jungle, should we be reason like to me like
Pretend like
intelligence
we're
is
not in
that
the jungle of capitalism.
right? Like let's say it's just like we're just creating a jungle. Could we create a more civil something that doesn't look like a jungle but looks like a civilization, and let's maintain that fairy tale?
So that's an interesting dynamic. So just to make sure I can summarize it and that I understand it properly. So what I'm saying is the real reality from the Machiavellian perspective is that we're in a jungle and Machiavellian rules win at at all points in the jungle. But we should try to act as if we're not in the jungle. Try to live this civilization game. Don't
Right.
think like that until we're forced to by another Machiavellian. And then you're drawing a parallelism and say, well, capitalism is kind of like Machiavellianism. So should we play a non-capitalistic game? Um,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
I mean, so here's what I'll say. I don't think capitalism is dangerous in a way that Machiavellianism is. So I don't think we really need to resist it. Um, but I do think it's an interesting angle. Um, I think the maybe the problem is, like I said, the same way that Machiavellianism always wins, right? If we're playing this game of rules and civilization and norms, and then someone has a gun to your head, then none of that stuff matters. Maybe likewise, if a capitalist has a good business and a good product, there may not be much to do that we can even do to stop it.
Right. To me it's a that's why it's an interesting angle to me. It's just like it's like, and I'm not saying because I am a capitalist because I understand the realism of the world, and I think that's what
It's a
makes
practical thing. It's not that you
right.
want to be; it's just
I'm not
practical.
right, and I want to say that, and I want to say that because it's just like I think people are scared to say that, but like to me, if you're thinking about a like to me, a 4-year-old could easily see what equality would look like if they were ruler of a planet. And like maybe not a 4-year-old, maybe like a 7-year-old. They would see like, hey, if we got resources and like this is something that it has to be shared amongst everybody, then maybe we should start breaking it down into equal parts. And to me, like your basic for basic reasoning, I think like even a 7-year-old could get it right in terms of distribution of resources. But he, I think human nature goes against that. And because human nature goes against that, and I understand human nature, I'm intrinsically a capitalist because I know that it creates the best incentives for people to go out and and create value in the system. I don't think that it necessarily like I don't think that it is the most optimal. I think it's the most real. So like if we're playing this game of not living in the wild wild west, I wouldn't choose capitalism. And it's just like I wouldn't choose capitalism if we're making up systems. And it's just like because capitalism is another made up system. I would choose something that disincentivizes those actions, uh, creates it makes it harder for even a Machiavellian personality or behavior to exist in a system where everything is distributed and wealth is shared, and now like government isn't centralized. I mean it is, but it's just like it's seen as broader
Well,
and
here's the thing too. I feel like Machiavelli. I think you're right. Right. If you have a more egalitarian society where your individuals are have a similar amount of resources, and there isn't one strong man, leading the charge. I think you have a lot fewer Machiavelli. I don't think there's any group of people. Maybe there's some small group, but like especially you get like a large group, most people aren't Machiavellian. Most individuals, like, we fit into the civilization game nicely. I think we're
I would say
designed to do that. Like, we're social animals, right? If
I would
everybody
say
was Machiavellian, it'd be chaos out here, right? So
I would
most
say
people are not that way. Most people can play the civilization game by default, and they play it very well. And they don't even know they're in a jungle. They just think like everything is fine, right? So yeah,
but
I
the
do think
system
it.
though
Sorry.
I said but the system I would say is though just like you said like most people aren't like you're saying like aren't most people aren't Machiavellis, but the system incentivizes it though.
Yes, the system at the top, and then so here's another thing I say too is. Um, Leaders tend to be Machiavellian, and leaders tend to
Absolutely.
be psychopathic
Psychopath,
sometimes.
right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and the reason is because they're incentivized to be that way by the people, right? And so, for instance, populism is on a rise on the left and the right, and what's the critique of a populist? It's like, okay, well, you need to care more about us, not them, not the world, not anybody else. You need to care about us, right? It's all about me and what's in my interest. And if our leaders are, for instance, they'll say, why are we sending billions to Ukraine? We have problems at home, right?
Right.
Like, that's basically saying, like, hey, you need to be more self interested. You
Right.
need to be, stop caring about the world and everybody else. So, like, we ask our people to really be like cold, like, hey, like, forget those guys. They're not
Right.
us, right?
Right.
Like, they're just not, right? And so, like, if you're a leader and you are doing good things for people that aren't your people probably gonna replace you with someone
Right.
who focuses on doing good things for them,
Absolutely.
and someone who's cold and calculated and who's gonna bring you a new nation in tomorrow. That's probably who you want at the charge.
Yep.
So it's like, even if the person isn't naturally a psychopath or think like a Machiavellian, just to do his job, he may have to think that way.
Right.
So yeah, that's something I say too. Is like in the book, like CEOs are the same way, right? The CEO, like if I'm the CEO of a company and I can build this factory, but it's going to mess up the city's water supply. The city's water supply is not my problem,
Right.
right? Like if I'm trying to maximize shareholder value, your kids drinking water in Flint, Michigan is not
It's not my
my
problem.
problem,
Not
right?
all.
The government need to clean that up. The government should have regulated me, right? Like they should have did something. But my job is not to take care of the community. My job is to take care of shareholders, right?
Absolutely.
And someone, if you have a leader who has a heart, who's like, man, those kids, if we build this factory and we dump this stuff, yeah, it's going to save us a bunch of money. But those kids might get diseases that might lower the lifespan of those children drinking this dirty water. And then you choose not to make that money, and it's clear, right? If it's clear that you chose to make significantly less money for the company, you might get fired,
You
right? And
talk what you're saying. My apologies for interrupting. What you're saying is dangerous because it's damn near what happened though, and it's like and that's but that's the scary thing that people don't want to talk about. Like there was a capitalist incentive to not upgrade the water. It cost money. Like you have to do so. And let's say for instance there was another company that it was like dropping waste or something in what would be the water supply. It's not my job to stop dumping waste. You should have made it so that it was illegal for me to dump waste in
Right.
this lake. And that is exactly the system that we live in. People don't understand that. That is exactly
Yeah, because
what
you
we
can't
live
trust
in.
companies to regulate themselves.
Right.
They have
They
no incentive to do so.
absolutely not. And that's to me that's dangerous. To me that is it's like I'm not I don't want to sound like I'm being cynical, but embracing capitalism to me almost embraces cynicism. And it doesn't necessarily like it to me it doesn't have to be the case. And I think like even saying that even going up even potentially saying a hypothetical to capitalism would automatically just make you a socialist in a lot of people's eyes. And it's just like, no, but like just generally talking about capitalism and its effects on a society and how it doesn't, capitalism's incentive is to create the most for society by serving individuals. And it's not
By serving individuals. Yes.
right. And it's not doing so for societal's for the value of societal growth. That happens to be a byproduct. That happens to be a byproduct, and that's the danger to me. Where capitalism it creates value because it's self-interested, and the value is a byproduct of the self-interest, and that to me is dangerous. Like when you think about it, like when you really think about it, because it's just I'm not again I'm no Marxist, and people like I'm just arguing. Again, I'm a capitalist. I'm just arguing a different a different perspective. But from a Marxist perspective, it seems as if there is more of a, and maybe it shouldn't be the case, but a moral or egalitarian. How would you
Egalitarian.
egalitarian? Thank you. Egalitarian perspective, and it seems to be, in that perspective, it seems to be what I would consider a more reasonable path, especially if we're talking about hypotheticals and staying in the fairy tale world. Like, to me, that would be the most optimal.
Yeah. So I think the tough part is we're not in the fairy tale world, right? Like we're
Right.
not. Now for the Machiavellian piece, we need to act like it. On the capitalism side, I think capitalism is not as bad as Machiavellianism by a pretty big amount, but it still has these weaknesses, like we're talking about, right? Like we said, the water. If your city has bad water regulations, and I'm doing something in your city, and I can save money by messing up the water, that's that's your fault as the
Your
government
fault.
for not
Yep.
having regulated it. And I'm either going to, as a CEO, choose to make my shareholders a bunch of money, or I'm going to choose not to. And if I
Right.
choose not to, I'm probably going to get
I'm gonna get
fired
replaced with
and
somebody
get
who will.
replaced by somebody who will give them their
Absolutely.
money. So it doesn't really matter what I do anyway, right? So yeah, I think that those realities of when the incentives of the company goes against the incentives of your society, that's when you need the government to come in and do their job and realign those interests, or make it illegal. So yeah, man, and so my point was, the reason you see so many CEOs and leaders of companies that are this way, or psychopathic Machiavellian, is that being a normal person probably makes you worse at your job. Having a heart makes you bad at your job
Absolutely.
at that level, right?
Absolutely.
Someone who's just going to be like, hey, what's the rules? Who can stop me? Is it legal? Is legal? Then mess up the water.
Yep.
Like,
That's
and
it.
that's the person that's going to
That's
make
it.
you the money.
Yep. And that's where, like, to me, I think I think there may be a correlation where people who are highly intelligent have less connection to their emotion, or maybe not even necessarily that, or just more results oriented. And it's just like, and I think that can be seen as like a lot of people. and I'm a pretty nice guy, I would say, but like a lot of people in my family who are close to me, they think I'm cold. They're like, you are dismissive, you're cold, and it's like I'm results oriented. I can remove all of that emotion where I think a lot of people are just trying to feel the moment and I'm trying to solve the moment. Like and that's a it's a different perspective, and I think that perspective is seen as code, and it's like because it's dismissive of the moment, like, you know what I mean, like it's dismissive of what's going on in this moment, where it's just like I'm like there's another reality where this shit is resolved, like, you know what I mean, like I know I know what you're feeling right now is like pain and fear and all of this, but there is another reality where you not feeling that, and the sooner we get there,
The better.
right. And I think like, and I think I think maybe there's a higher correlation with people who are either educated or maybe more intellectual, where they are strictly results oriented, or they're able to maybe reduce their emotions to where they're now you're able to make more reasonable decisions, and you're not.
So here's what I'll say. I've seen some research on psychopathy, and which is different than Machiavellianism, because Machiavellianism, the personality trait is a little different than like the. I was more talking about the philosophy of
Right.
Niccolo Machiavelli from his book The Prince, but anyway, you know, similar direction here. Um, the research I saw on philosophy, basically they split psychopaths into two groups. Now you see a lot higher rate of psychopathy in prisons, right? So among, you know, which makes sense, right?
Right.
So among the prison population, there's a high rate of psychopathy. Prison population also tends to have lower IQ individuals.
That makes
Um,
sense.
so yeah, makes sense. So you may think, okay, well, does that mean that psychopaths are low IQ? And this is
No,
where it
not
comes back
always.
to, yeah. So this is where it comes back to the research I saw, which what they split psychopaths into two different types. There are the more impulsive psychopaths, and then you know, sometimes there's sociopaths too. I'm not going to get into the weeds of the distinction between those two. But anyway, there's the more impulsive ones. Um, those tend to be more violent,
Right.
and those tend to be, you know, they end up in prisons. The other psychopaths, they're less impulsive. They still don't have the empathy. They're still cold and calculated and manipulative, but they don't really have that same impulsive nature. So they don't end up going to prison at nearly the rates as the other psychopaths. And so those psychopaths tend to be just in society, like they're just out there and they work in
Leading your
jobs
companies.
and leading your companies. Yeah, like those might be the ones that, and maybe they have. I would guess that those psychopaths have higher intelligence on average than the other group of psychopaths. I don't know if they're over 100 IQ. You know, I don't know if they're above the average, but I would suppose those are better than the other psychopaths at least.
I would imagine so. If I had to imagine, now you're just in general, like you really don't even have to be that reasonable. If you're self interested, you can get a lot of shit done. Like it's especially if you know that, like, you don't have to be reasonable. You don't have to make the most reasonable decision. You just have to align your interest and just move in that direction, and that can
Well, I
get
think the moving it because almost everybody's self interested, right?
I wouldn't imagine so. And now, like when I think about society, and I think about how many times like we are self interested, but I think there are some things that, like firemen, like they're self interested, like they're doing a job, but they know that the value or the compensation relative to the risk to me ain't worth it. I mean, like, you know what I mean, like it is if you're saving a community, and I get it, but I'm saying, like, just generally speaking, is $100,000, maybe $70,000 a year, whatever the average salary for a firefighter is that worth the value of your life? And it's just like in most cases I would say no. And I think like a lot of times people like, or where like you're saving someone from like a situation, like let's say for instance somebody is about to get hit by a car and you can push him out the way, Do you push them out the way to prevent them from getting hit by a car and potentially putting yourself at risk? I think a lot of people do like would do something like that. So it's just like I do think there's a unique distinction where people aren't necessarily like they do go
The
against their
people who never
self-interest.
hold themselves back is what you're talking about. Like, if you
Right,
never hold yourself back, then that would
right,
just take you far
right,
by
right.
itself.
I think that would. I think it absolutely would. I think it could take you a lot further if you're just 100% self-interest. You knowing what the other person wants or what it is that is expected of you to get the result that you want. I think
Yeah,
it's dangerous.
because like following these rules and norms, there's a cost to that.
There is. That's
There's a
my point.
cost.
That's my
Yeah,
point.
there's a
Yep.
cost. When you stop following that stuff, it's like, hey, I'm
Yep.
just going to just move.
Do it. Yep.
I'm getting it done. Whatever I don't care. I was supposed to do it. I don't care about even how anybody judging me. I'm gonna just get it done. How I'm gonna get it done. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
there's certainly value to that. Now, you may pay a social cost, uh,
Absolutely.
but otherwise, yeah, you just get rid of all those blocks.
It's dangerous, man. It's again, I am a capitalist, and I think I will always be until inevitably AI comes in. Hopefully, it just replaces traditional jobs, and we have different jobs. But I don't. It wouldn't be my ideal system, especially even thinking about it in this context. Like when I think about Machiavelli, and I thought about everything, I was like the parallels for capitalism is a little scary. And it's not to say that, like, again, there are good things about capitalism because we are living in the wild west, and it creates the best conditions for the reality of the situation. Now we can make the best conditions, we can make our conditions better, but I think it would, and this maybe is, I guess, where a little cynicism comes in. It would require going against your self-interest in favor of the collective, which I think civilization, if I'm being honest, I think it pushes people towards it. Um, I think civilization pushes people towards it, but I think it's a constant fight against
I
our
mean,
nature.
when we're I mean, there's duality. So we're a social animal, and there's a strong collective nature,
Right,
but collective for whom?
right,
Right? So collective, for we over here, this is my land, you over there is your land. We collective within the scope of our respective areas. But when we interact with each other, oftentimes it's bloodshed, right?
right,
So I think having a communal nature, right? So even conservatives, right, who tend to be more like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, stand on your own, small government, like they're still socialists in the household, right? Like
right,
they're not making you pay when you take something out the cookie jar, right?
right,
Like it's like and they're still pro socialism at the church. They want
right,
communities coming together and helping each other
right.
out. It's just that when it gets to the government, then they don't want to do it, right?
It's
But there's
inconsistent. That's inconsistent. It's just like if you go to the dinner plate and dad's like anybody who bought the mashed potatoes can eat the mashed potatoes. It's like, well, damn. Like you know what I mean?
right.
Like it's like, but dad is gonna like everybody is instinctive, and that's where it's just like what the moral and you know what the optimal solution is for a group, and we choose to go against it in favor of the individual.
Yeah, I mean, because often we are the individual, and so I had an interesting thought. Um, so you mentioned, and this goes back to what I said, is like humans are designed not to be Machiavellian. Like the average person is designed to fit into the norms and move. And unfortunately, because the norms sometimes are horrible, right? So the norm might be you in Nazi Germany,
Right,
and they gonna fit right in with that norm. That's
right,
exactly what they do. Or the norm might be, you're in some extreme Islamic country and you got to kill the gay person next door. Boom. Or you're here and it's a lot easier and not a lot nicer in the modern Western civilization to fit in with the norm. But anyway, I think humans are designed to kind of just socialize and do whatever everybody's doing and kind of just follow the norms and the system and the structure. Um, but you still have the capability for leaders to emerge that act like Machiavellians. And I wonder if that's by design, man. Like, I wonder, not necessarily by design, but by like, it's just how it works. Like, the average person is designed to fit in and be led by people who are brutal like that. Or a similar, and I'll let you respond real quick, but another similar idea I had was like, why don't people get more intelligent? Right. It's like, you know, imagine you had a society where like everybody was in the top 5%, right, in terms of intelligence. It's like, would that society, like, what would happen in that society where there's no dumb people? Like who's working at McDonald's, right? Like, who's going to do the stuff that you need to get done? That's kind of menial, you know. Like, would nobody really want to do that work? Like, do you need a distribution of low intelligence people just to keep society moving? And so, like, I'm not trying to get like super negative here, but that's the type of thing. Like, do we need non-Machiavellians and Machiavellians? Do we need lower intelligence people? Will there be some issue if people got more intelligent? Like, I don't know.
I think I think like I don't know if it's the case that people, and I guess maybe I keep saying this, but maybe maybe I don't know if it's the case that people aren't Machiavellian by nature, because
I
it's
don't
like
think they are. I think
it's
we play the civilization game well, man. People don't
we
even know they're in a civilization game. They
we
don't even
do.
know.
I mean, you're right, but it's just like you said, with it like I'm breaking it down to like I'm talking about like I'm breaking it all the way down to free will. Like I don't believe people are free, and I believe that humans largely are a byproduct of their system. And if the system is negative, I think you'll likely create byproducts of that. And I think like and I think there was an experiment that I was trying to think about. I think it was like the prison guard experiment or something.
Well, yeah, but to me,
Uh,
I think that's what makes them non-Machiavellian is that they're going to do whatever the system is, and that's why I brought up Nazi Germany. Because if the norm of the system is we're killing Jews tomorrow, then people are
then
going to
we're
go kill
killing.
Jews tomorrow. That's what they're going to
Right.
go do, right? But they're not Machiavellian. They're still playing the game that everybody else is
I
playing.
see what you're saying.
The
I see what
Machiavellian
you're
says,
saying.
"I don't care about this game. I'm
I see
my
what
own
you're saying.
person." Yeah,
I see what you're saying. But to me, I think it's maybe I'm saying it's natural for people to take that role because self-interest is the most natural state. Like maybe I'm saying that. Like maybe I'm saying like people would prefer that role relative to, or maybe instinctively take that role relative to the alternative. And the alternative is what takes like is damn near to me what I would almost calculate as intelligence, the ability to go against the system.
well,
Uh,
I feel like you're trying to like think of like an anti-Machiavellian because, like, for instance, like Machiavellian on one side is like, I'm gonna break out of this system that everybody's doing and just think about the power structures within it and what I can do to serve myself on a cold, amoral basis. And then you have the vast majority of people who are stuck in the system. And if it's a good system, then they're going to be good. If it's a bad system, they're going to be horrible, right? Like, it just depends on what kind of society you're in. And then I think what you're thinking about is like somebody who's outside of the system, like a Machiavellian, but actually still cares. And that's like the opposite of a Machiavellian.
right, but it is. But I'm saying like I'm also like I guess I'm saying like is it? I think I'm pointing out that I disagree. That I think people may be naturally Machiavellian.
I don't think so, man.
I mean, and
I really don't.
that's the wild west. And I think like that's exactly like to me that's exactly why capitalism works. Like you're literally talking about the self interest of the individual, and that's why we have a system built around it. And it's just like, and that system works because of the nature of humans. And if self interest is our nature, I mean that's what Machiavellian was preaching. Because before Machiavelli, politics was seen as a substrate of morals. Like it was Aristotle. It was like, and like
Right.
politics was like a sub, yeah, like a subset of morals. And then Machiavelli came and was like, it's its own entity. It's its own thing. And I think people, maybe we're not necessarily naturally that, but I think we have a natural inclination. I think it feels better than the alternative,
I
or
think
at
the
least it's
fact
an
that we're
easier set to get
socialized,
to.
I think the fact that we're socialized and that we're social by default is what makes us non-Machiavellian. Like humans are great at fitting any kind of form. Like whatever mold is currently going on in society, that's what we do, right? Like we can be, you put us in a Spartan training camp, and like we're gonna be soldiers coming out of that. You put us in, a slave mentality, we're gonna have a slave mentality. You put us in a
Yep.
brutal, you know, type of culture where we conquer and raid, and we're gonna be raiders and conquerors and that like that the normal human is capable of so much on the good and the bad. We're capable of all of that, right? Like if I take a kid and I say, "Hey, I'm gonna raise you in a society, your dad, your brother, like what y'all do is y'all go village to village, slaughter the men, rape the women." That's what they gonna do. That's what they like, and that's just gonna be life. That's normal for them, right? And so to me, that's what and it may seem Machiavellian because it's brutal, but it's not Machiavellian because they're just still following the norms of society. They just live in a brutal society. Um, but at least most of us now, we don't live in a brutal society, so the Machiavellians are easier to spot because they're the brutal ones. But if you live in a brutal society, that still doesn't mean you're Machiavellian. That just means that you're a normal person in this game
In this
of
brutal
brutality.
system.
Yes, which is why having a good culture is a big deal. And then that's where you go back to Jordan Peterson, right? Because Jordan Peterson is like, I think he understands that, and he thinks that religion keeps us from ending up in
And
cultures where the norm is brutality like that, because we really can be. I think he understands that humans can be very brutal, and because one of the biggest things that he studied was the Holocaust and like how that happened, and how the German people ended up in that place. Um, so yeah, I think that to me, people are not Machiavellian. They don't know we're in the jungle. People are going to do whatever the norm is. They're going to believe whatever the religion is. Like that's what the average person is designed to do. And then you have these rare people that don't care about whatever your norms are. They just don't care, and their sole angle is what can I get out of it, and I'm not going to get distracted by whatever people think is a natural thing.
I think I agree with you. Like I agree with you that like that people are, maybe what I'm saying is I think, I mean, let's take history. I mean, like you said as an example that we're not uh like Machiavellian is that we play the civilization game relatively well, but the civilization games in terms of human history, we ain't been playing it that long. Like, you know what I mean, relative to the scale of, or at least the origin of humans on the timeline. It's just like I would say civilization, humanity is probably 230,000 to 300,000 years old. Civilization as we know it is maybe 1,000 years old. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
less
Like
than
it,
that,
less
as
than
we
that,
know it. Yeah,
as we know it. And like for the majority of humanity, I think if we went back, I think we would see the like we stealing apples and we not sharing. Like I think you would see, and maybe I'm not saying, maybe it's not to
well,
say
I think
that.
I think the confusion is I'm using the term civilization. I think when you hear civilization, you think like good civilization. Where like I just mean civilization, period, which is more of like I'm more talking about conformity to whatever the current status quo is. And
Right.
humans are designed to conform, if it's good or bad. Conformity. We're designed to conform, and the Machiavellian does not conform.
But I think to me the easiest state, especially given human history, may be non-conform, like not necessarily conformity. It may be the Machiavellian state, is
It
what
may
I'm
be
saying.
brutal,
Right.
but to me, they're still not Machiavellian because they're playing the civilization game. It's just a brutal civilization. So I think it's a tough way to kind of split that hair there.
Because I would say civilization to me is, it goes against the nature. It goes against human nature. Like that's what I would say with civilization. I would almost say the same thing with intelligence. Like civilization goes against human nature, and to me, it's a marvel that we got here, and we're actively trying to sustain it. But I think the easiest state, and this is what I mean, like I don't think that we're naturally Machiavellian, but I think the easiest state to obtain is Machiavellian relative to the alternative. Like, and that's where I think it's, and that's why I think we have history. I mean,
So
I
let me
think,
draw this thing. So imagine you're in a civilization that it is brutal. It's a brutal civilization. You're
yep,
civilization you're in conquers and rapes women from the villages they conquer. Okay,
yep,
but there's a norm in a civilization that says um, you you have to murder any woman that has a child already. So you only take the young ones that haven't given birth. Okay, so that's the norm. Now it's brutal. That's very brutal, and one may call that Machiavellian. But to me, the Machiavellian in that society, if he goes to this new village and he finds a woman who has a child, but she's beautiful, like he really want her sexually, it's like, nah, I'm gonna keep her. Right, like that's the Machiavellian, right? Like the non Machiavellian is going to be like, hey, we're not supposed to, keep those. I know she's attractive, but the rule is, we murder those and then we rape the other ones, right? Like that, it's all brutal. But like the Machiavellian is willing to toss out whatever norms they do have, as
I,
long as it suits his interest.
I get you. Like maybe I'm talking about like altruism, like in terms of self interest, and it's just like I think the to me I think the base state is self interest relative to something like altruism.
Yes,
That
but it's
is
self interest within the group, though. Like humans do not stand on our own. We do. People like you and me do, but
right,
humans generally do not. Humans are group animals, man. Like you see an angry mob, that's humans, right? Like
right,
that's what we do. We're not the ones outside of the mob looking at them like damn, that makes me nervous. That like we exist, but we're the rare ones that are willing to like step out of whatever's popular right now and be kind of free spirits. Now the Machiavellian is a free spirit in that way, but then goes pure like power and amoral, right? But like we're that, but we're not, amoral, but we're
right.
still not conforming to the group. But to me, like every human, every from forever since the beginning of time, humans will blend in to whatever society they're in. Like let's say you're a Christian. Okay, I'm gonna drop you some Native American tribe 2,000 years ago. You're gonna believe whatever religion they believe at that
Yep,
time. Like that,
yep.
that's just humans are designed to, whatever their back, practices are. Like, oh well, on 2 days out of the week, you got to go rub the trees to please the tree. Got like that's what you're gonna be doing. If that's what they did, that's what you're gonna be doing if you over there. And that's what I'm saying. Humans conform. That we're social creatures, and that's a strength, right? Our social nature is a strength that protects us, but it also can make us stupid, especially in groups.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Like to me, I think like when I think of altruism, I think of it being like, especially like from a evolutionary perspective, it goes against evolution. And that's why to me, like in Machiavelli, a Machiavellian, just in terms of from an evolutionary standpoint of existing, I think it wins. Like you know what I mean? Like when if you see something you want it, you take it relative to
I don't
someone
think
else
so, man. I
who's
don't think
thinking.
so. I think
I think they win.
I think fitting in wins.
I think it's
Like
like it's
if
survival of the
you if for
fittest.
instance if you put me in Puritan, America, right, and I'm like, hey y'all, I think this witch hunt shit is stupid because they're gonna be like, you a goddamn witch, they're gonna kill me. right? Like I'm
Right.
not going to last, right? Well, I will last if I'm playing that game with them and I just blend in like a member of the crowd and hope nobody has a dream that I'm a witch. Like that's
I
the
don't
best way to survive. Being a lone wolf will get you killed.
I don't disagree with you. I'm saying, like, because I agree that humans conform. I'm saying, to me, I think base level, without any variables to conform to, I think there are, like, so let's say, for instance, like, we take the example that humans can conform. I think there are easier systems to conform to, or easier ideals to conform to, or states for you to exist in relative
True.
to others.
Yes.
And I think
I talk about that in my book
altruism,
too. I have a book called Societal Context where I discuss what normal can be, because normal can be
right,
a wide variety of things, but there's certain
right,
things that it cannot be. Yes,
right,
and say altruism is one of those.
right, exactly. That's my point. That's my exact point. And I think, like, at base level, I don't think that altruism is an instinctive state.
No, it's not. No, it's
And
not in your interest to be altruistic.
right. And that's my point. That's almost my whole point. That is almost my whole point about the nature of humans. And
But if it is, it's within the in group where there's long run reciprocal benefits of out. Like for instance,
right,
like I think like
right,
certain monkeys will like groom each other. Like I'll pick the bugs off your back because I know you'll
right,
pick the bugs off my back, and that
right,
makes like everybody better off. You
right.
know, it versus being somebody who never helps and nobody helps you, and then you're screwed. So I think there's like there's a reciprocal altruism that can be useful and like
Beneficial.
in the in group, yes.
I
But
agree with that.
generally, yes, being too altruistic is not going to help you. Yeah.
And that's my, I guess that's what I was just pointing out. Like, in the nature of humans, and that, like, civilization, to me, like altruism, is a, just like you said, it's sacred. I like that term. It is sacred.
Yes.
It is sacred. And I don't think that we I don't think that it's something that you are born with. Like, and that's where it's just like, to me, the easiest state is to get what you want when you want it by any means. That's the easiest state.
Right. That's the
And
most natural, right? That's
right,
when you're a baby and
right,
you don't got morals, you're just trying to get food and live, and
right,
at a really fundamental level,
right,
that's all of us.
right. And then, like, to me, so that's where it's like, it doesn't make me cynical, but it makes me appreciate society, because I think there is likely an alternative. And, like, again, we're still fighting for it in every sense of the word. Like, we're still fighting for it. Civilization isn't something that's guaranteed, and I think that's something that we're taking for granted even in this moment. But not us in particular.
Right.
but,
Yeah. But the bigger picture. Yeah.
right. But it's just, it calls us for a moment of reflection, to understand the sanctity of civilization and altruism,
Yeah,
and to,
it's the duality, right? You need to keep playing the civilization game because it is sacred, but you got to keep
right,
your eye on the jungle, though.
you do,
Keep your eye
you
on the
do,
ball when you got people moving in the jungle.
you do, absolutely.